Alright, hello guys. So as promised, today I am back to make my Game Week 2 Premier League predictions. And I'm going to briefly reflect on what a crazy opening week Game Week 1 it was. And without further ado, let's look at the results from last week. And here are the scores on the doors from last week. My predictions are on the left, the actual predictions are on the right. And I did very well. I got one outcome, one scoreline bang on, that was Brighton and Fulham drawing 1-1. But I got 8 outright, outcomes correct. And that ended up being a total of 10 points already for me this season. And here, as ever, is the Premier League table after the opening game week with, the likes of Sunderland and Leeds having won 2nd and 7th. And anyway, we'll see how they do this week. And we'll start with Friday night's match. It's West Ham United against Chelsea. And, okay, Chelsea got a 0-0 draw against Crystal Palace. I don't know, that's not a terrible start to the season, but I did expect more from them. I thought they'd win. And as for West Ham, I predicted them to lose to Sunderland, which they did, but 3-0 is a disgrace, and all of a sudden I am worried. I am very worried about West Ham's chances of survival this season now. I think, obviously it's very early to predict, but this could be a long slope. I still think they could survive, but it could be a long trudge this season. God, seeing them in the Championship would be quite a strange thing, really, when they won the Europa Conference League a couple years ago. But anyway, I digress. I do think on this match, with it being at the London Stadium, I think West Ham can score a goal. But I look at Chelsea and I just think, the likes of Cole Palmer, who else? And Cucurella, and João Pedro, Liam Delap, they can all score goals. And I think Chelsea will get this over the line. 2-1 Chelsea is where I'm going on game number 1. Okay, next up we've got Manchester City against Tottenham Hotspur. Two sides that absolutely dominated their opponents last week. Man City getting a 4-0 beating Wolves 4-0, absolutely hammering them. And the same could really be said for Spurs against Burnley, 3-0 victories. And at the start of last week, I was worried about James Maddison's injury, being, slightly hampering Spurs. But, Richarlison with goals, 2 goals I think, and then Brennan Johnson with another goal. They've got some good players still. Richarlison, Brennan Johnson, kudos from West Ham. He had a good game. They can score goals. And then Man City on the flip side. Erling Haaland, 2 goals, and still got Omar Mamouche, but I have to shout out to Reinders. I've heard a few different pronunciations online, and he scored a goal, and what an opening match he had, goals and assists everywhere. I think this game could be quite heavy on goals here. I am going to back the home side, with it being at the Etihad. I am going to back Man City. But let's go for some fun. City win it 3-2 is my prediction. 3-2 Man City. And next up, we have got Bournemouth against Wolves in the ex-Gary O'Neill derby. Of course, Gary O'Neill not at either place anymore. Now, Bournemouth, they did lose 4-2 to Liverpool. Semenyo with, a couple goals to equalise at 2-2 before Liverpool scored 2 last-minute goals to win the match 4-2. But I just have to say, what a disgrace. That Liverpool fan at Anfield who racially abused Semenyo, what a disgrace. What a disgrace of if we can even call him a football fan, hold your head in shame. As for Wolves, though, they got absolutely battered by Man City, as I just said, 4-0. I predicted, and this was at Molineux as well, I predicted Wolves to lose that match, but I didn't predict it to be in the fashion they did. And yeah, I feel like the squad is thin, and it's a bit like West Ham. I am now a bit worried for their relegation chances here. Again, after just one game, it's easy to say. I do think this could be a closer match, but with it being at the Vitality, I am going to pick a winner. I'm going to pick Bournemouth, but only just. I don't know why I'm just going for this. 1-0 Bournemouth. I could see it easily being 2 or 3 if Wolves perform like they did last week. But I'm just going the one goal difference. And next up, we've got the first of our championship matchups from last season. It's Burnley against Sunderland. And both of these sides had, well, basically the opposite results. Burnley lost 3-0 to Spurs, and Sunderland won 3-0 against West Ham last week. And Burnley, of course, I don't really know what to say about them. But Sunderland, again, what a performance against West Ham. And suddenly, with you, and maybe even Leeds, I do fancy their chances of survival. And I want to put it out there. I made my Premier League predictions way early, like a month ago, and I put Sunderland bottom because at the time I thought they were gonna be not as good, but I am now fancying the chances for survival. But with all that being said, Burnley are defensive, and at home, I think they'll get most of their points at home this season. And I think a draw might help both of them. It'll lift Burnley out the drop zone, and it'll keep Sunderland in the Champions League spots. So let's go for it. A 1-1 draw. Of course, Burnley last season, James Trafford only let them concede 16 goals, and what was a history-making season for goals conceded in the Championship. Of course, he's gone to Man City, but I still think they'll be defensive, and 1-1 is where I'm going. Next up, we've got Brentford against Aston Villa. And, okay, we have to talk about Brentford first of all. I don't know if Keith Andrews is working. They brought in, obviously, him. He is a set-piece coach, former set-piece coach under Thomas Frank. And they brought him in to be manager. And in his first game, he goes 3-0 down to Forest at half-time. The only goal Brentford scored in that match was a penalty. Igor Thiago got his goal, but it's not a good performance, and I fear Keith Andrews might actually be the first to be sacked this season. And then Villa, they got a 0-0 draw against Newcastle. That's a decent point to start the season with. Of course, not quite the 2 goals for each side I predicted for a draw, but it was a point for me, and a point for Villa. And unfortunately, I feel like Brentford could be quite an easy side to beat this season, at least at the start, till they bring in someone more experienced. I think Villa could run right here. I'm going to give Brentford a goal, seeing as it is at this ground, but I'm giving Villa the win. And fairly heavy. I'm going Villa 3-1. I think Villa will get a couple goals. They've still got a decent squad, albeit, very similar to last season, but 3-1 is where I'm going. They can score goals. Next up, we've got Arsenal against Leeds, and both these sides won last week. Arsenal beat Man United 1-0, and Leeds beat Everton 1-0 on Monday night. And, okay, I'm not sure if I'm entirely convinced by either side. Arsenal, they did get the 3 points, and that was crucial, especially for their title hopes. I'm not sure if their new signing Victor Gyökeres did anything special in that match. And then Leeds, yeah, they got the 3 points, the 1 goal. It was a penalty. But, I'm not well, they absolutely did. They dominated. They hammered Everton in that match in terms of, shots on goal. And in the end, they got the 3 points over the line. But it's at the Emirates. And I think Arsenal are just too strong. Yeah, I do fancy Leeds more at home this season, and I do fancy them to go on and survive maybe at the stage. But Arsenal are a different unit, and I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal. They're going to win and get a clean sheet in this one. And next up, we've got Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. And I just feel like this game has draw written all over it. Palace with a 0-0 draw against Chelsea, and Nottingham Forest with an absolute dominant performance against Brentford, 3-1. I mean, you've got Chris Wood. He's still banging in the goals despite his age. They've still got Morgan Gibbs-White, still got Callum Hudson-Odoi. Yeah, they lost Elanga, but they've still got a squad that can win games. And Palace, Eberechi Eze is quite heavily linked with a move to Tottenham. I don't know if he'll be playing in this one. I think Mark Gahey's looking for a move maybe to Liverpool as well, so I fear those two players could go out the door. But I think for this match, they've got enough in the tank, especially them being at home for a draw. 1-0 is where I'm going. Next up, we've got Everton against Brighton. And Everton, their performance last week wasn't great. They lost, obviously, 1-0 to Leeds. They got rolled over in terms of stats as well. And Brighton got... I can't remember what they did. Did they draw? Oh, no, yeah, they drew 1-1 with Fulham. That's the one outcome I actually got correct last week. So Everton nearly drew. However, and of course with Everton moving into their new stadium, the Hill Dickinson Stadium, just on the River Mersey, I think that could be good business. I think that could be good for them. I think that could be beneficial. Now, I said because of that new stadium, at the start of the season, Everton would get top 10, especially under David Moyes and the players he's brought in, the likes of Jack Grealish and Keenan Dewsbury Hall. I think them, along with Beto maybe, or who else have they got? So Jake O'Brien can score goals, of course. There's that other one that scores frequently. I forgot his name now. But they've got goal scorers, and because of that, and because the fans will rock up to their new ground, all excited and happy, I think they might somehow, despite last week's result, get the win over the line. 2-1 Everton. Let's go for it. 2-1 Everton, and a win to start off their new life in their new stadium. Next up, we've got Fulham against Manchester United. And, Fulham drew 1-0 with Brighton, as I just said. Man United lost 1-0 to Arsenal. And, yeah, if I had to pick a winner here, I would pick Fulham, especially with it being at Craven Cottage. But Man United was impressive last week. I mean, Bryan Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha, they did gel already. And of course, I like that front three of Cunha, Mbeumo and Sisco. And along with the likes of Bruno Fernandes, they can all link up, they can all gel together. And I think they could start getting results more so than last season. However, not the win. I'm going for the draw here. 1-1. I think both teams will be happy with a point in this one to keep moving the chains. And then finally, we've got maybe game of the weekend. It's Newcastle against Liverpool. And, Newcastle got that 0-0 draw against Villa. and Liverpool got a hammering 4-2 victory against Bournemouth. Not really hammering, is it? But in this one, with it being at St James's Park, I can see Newcastle scoring a couple goals. And Liverpool can obviously score goals here. Where do I go? You know what? Like, I can see this being a second high-scoring match of the week. Like, really high-scoring. Or a third, if you count the Villa game. I think... Here's what I think might happen. I think it might be 2-2 towards the end of the match. But Liverpool keep grinding out last-minute winners, don't they? When they're drawing. They did this last season a lot when they won the title. They were drawing, and then they got a goal or two in like the 90th odd minute to win. And I think they might do that again. They'll get the last-minute goal and win 3-2 against Newcastle this week. And there you have it, guys. All 10 Premier League matches done for another week. And yeah, we'll see how well I do this week. I was fairly impressed with, the 10 points last week. And I'll just hope for a couple more, or at least one more right prediction. Even one I'll take again, Because I say it's easy to predict, but it's quite not. But anyway, and make sure to like and subscribe. And tap the bell icon up here somewhere for notifications so you never miss a video. And I'll see you later.